Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it may be that you're watching this video. Welcome. My name is Josh Staffieri. I work at Greenwood College as a career specialist as part of the Ready Set College program. And today we're going to focus on career survey to college pathway. So if you want to get that note-taking device ready, paper and pen, your Gatorade, coffee, whatever's going to keep you awake, we'll go ahead and begin and get started here. All right. So again, I'm Josh. I work as the career specialist at Greenwood College. I realize you may not be going there in the future, but if you are, be more than happy to talk with you at some point about your interests, your strengths, your personality, and how those things might relate to certain types of programs and or jobs, right? That being said, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a crystal ball reader. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, but act more like a mirror, just reflecting yourself back to you a little bit more clearly so you can make that important, impactful decision. Important to keep in mind too is that, people change jobs and careers over a lifetime, right? Could you imagine buying a wardrobe, buying some shirts and pants and shorts, and that's being it your whole life, never buying any more shirts or shorts, right? Of course, you're going to change clothes as styles change, and so your career is going to change over time too. Anyhow, our agenda, we're going to discuss exploration. I'm sure you've done some of this already at the high school or on your own, and we'll discuss some other tools you might not know about. Then we'll look at how can you figure out, based upon who you are, what programs, schools, or jobs could be a better fit. Again, right? No job, no program is perfect, but the idea is to find one that's a better fit than other ones. And then we'll discuss the last thing is try on the job. So speaking of clothes, again, right, when you buy that jacket or a pair of shoes, I'm hoping you try them on before you make that final purchase. They might look good there in the store, but when you put them on, right, those shoes might be a little tight or too big. And you got to buy a different pair perhaps. So we'll discuss how can you try on the job to make sure, yeah, it might look good based upon your assessment results or talking to people about the job. But for you yourself, the experience, is it a good fit? So where can you start? So I'll give you a little story. I'm a first-gen college student. That means my parents did not go to college, but they drilled it in my head I was going to have, quote unquote, a better life. My dad did construction, a lot of manual labor, and my mom did odd end jobs, right? She cleaned homes and whatnot. And so they're like, you're going to college. And I thought, so once I got to college, I went to the University of San Diego, down there in SoCal. Once I got there, I thought, great. Now that I'm here, I kind of assume they're going to tell me what to do, right? I mean, I wouldn't have said that specifically, but I was definitely thinking it. I thought they're just going to hand me, say, hey, Josh, great job getting here. Now here's the plan for your life. Right? You're going to do this major, and these are the jobs you're going to be able to get with it. So that's partly true, but a lot not true, right? I did have people tell me I was maybe going to make a good counselor. And so I was thinking psychology, but no one ever questioned that at the college. So I pursued psychology and no one said, hey, let's check that out and see if it's a really good fit for you. When you make a decision, it's kind of just assumed that's what you want. So there's a lot of work on your end that needs to happen. And the benefit is once you figure out what you want to do, you're going to stay a lot more motivated. So what are some things you can do right now? Oh, forgot to ask the question. Hey, real quick too, what percent of people end up in similar jobs that their family and friends have? If you had a guess, what percent of people do you think end up in work that their family or friends already do? You thinking 20%, 50%? It's actually closer to 80%. 8 out of 10 people end up in jobs based upon what little information they know. And I don't mean to belittle, right, what you know, but yeah, if you're, I've served so many students, right? I meet people one-on-one, and they'll tell me what they're thinking of doing, and I'll ask the next question. Okay, so does anyone you know already do that job? And 8 times out of 10, they say yes. right? Yeah, my dad's doing this, my mom's doing this, or I have a cousin who's already working in this field, or my best friend's older sister does this. So I get it, right? You only know what you know. The trouble with that is there are a lot of jobs, hundreds, if not thousands of different types. So how would you know to pursue a job as a extension agent or product developer, food quality assurance, nutritionist, right? If you don't know anyone doing those jobs, you're not going to even know the job exists. And maybe you've heard of the job, but you know nothing about it, right? Maybe you've heard of nutritionists, but you don't really know what they do, how they got there, what the job entails. So really important to be exploring now because there's so many possibilities. And just because your dad does construction like mine did, perhaps, right? I knew I did not want to do that. I saw it come home, just tired, sore, dirty. I'm like, I don't want to be doing that. I want to do something a little bit different. I'm more of a communicator anyways, and deep thinker. And so I found a job that's a better fit for that. So what can you do right now? All right. One tip that's really profound and takes a little bit of time, but can be really helpful. It's called success stories. What do I mean by success stories? These are stories in your life where it has to meet three criteria. One, you enjoyed the experience. That's probably the easiest one to factor in. But the other two, a little more difficult. You're also proud of it and you deemed it a success. So it can't be at that time you went to Disney World and had a lot of fun with your family, right? That was, yeah, you enjoyed it, but are you proud of it? And is it a success, right? Or just kind of a fun experience? It can even be small examples. The first time you learned how to ride your bike without training wheels, the time you put together a volunteer experience for a couple of your peers for a class where you did some tutoring or mentoring and you really enjoyed that experience and you deemed it a success. Again, not in the eyes of other people, but in your eyes. The nice part with doing this is you get 5, hopefully closer to 10 stories. Again, don't have to be grand stories. It could be just small experience. Like, how did I learn how to ride my bicycle again? But then in looking at those stories, breaking them down, how did you do that exactly? And those stories begin to show patterns. So when I shared my stories with some colleagues doing this experience, one thing that came up that I really didn't think about before in the past was, Josh, have you considered that most of your stories involve you teaching something, right? Others are learning from what you're trying to get your point across. And it's like, okay. I didn't think about that because I'm not quote unquote a teacher, but yeah, I enjoy teaching people and helping them think through things. Right? A lot of my strengths involves different thinking things. So that's a great process to go through. Then your friends or family, right? So oftentimes it's hard to see ourselves, right? But others that can see you from the outside, you might be getting quotes, comments. I see you working as hey, Josh, you really seem to enjoy. And again, for me personally, I heard a lot of folks tell me counseling. Josh, have you considered counseling? I think you might make a great counselor. You seem to really enjoy listening to others. You seem to understand others and give them, great questions to be thinking about. I'm like, okay. The next question is that dream job question. A lot of folks I meet with ask them, wait, what's your dream job? They'll tell me, I don't know. It's why I'm talking to you. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to dream for you, right? So I've rephrased that question and I ask them, and I'll ask you, if you knew you could not fail at trying something, even for only 6 to 12 months, what would that be? Knowing you could not fail. So essentially remove reality for a second. And what does that look like? And I'll tell you what, 9 times out of 10, it's not as unrealistic or unattainable as you think it might be. But if you knew you could not fail at trying something, what would that be? That could be really profound as well. And then last, you probably have been asked this before, what's your favorite subjects in high school? That can give you some kind of idea too. I mean, mine was maybe history. Although I've learned since then, I love to look to the past to understand the present. Well, guess what history does, right? But the cool thing is with that too, is not a lot of jobs can benefit counseling, especially, right? I'm asking students about their history to understand their present better. So a lot of things to think about because you're, being a whole person, there's a lot to you. There's not just your interest, but there's your experiences, there's your personality, there's your natural talents, right? All these different factors come together and help give you a sense of direction. That being said, there are tools though that exist, right, that can help you also do this. And so right now, a great website you can look in and take advantage of is called My Next Move. And My Next Move has a lot of great resources. You can type in keywords, you can browse by industries. So maybe you don't know job titles, but you know a field you might enjoy working in. Let's say it's education, like me. Click on Browse, and then it'll give you a bunch of job titles that relate to the field of education. As you click on any of these jobs here, right, it's going to give you other titles that might go by: knowledge you needed, technology, job outlook. This is bright. Kind of gives you the pay, education requirements needed, at least a bachelor's degree or master's degree. So a lot of good information. But if you don't know what you're trying to find, that's where it has this nice interest survey. It's called the ONA Interest Profile. It's been around for a long time. As you go through this, just hit next on the sides. And the thing with any type of career assessment to keep in mind is go with that gut reaction. The moment you start thinking too much about your answer, you start putting what you should versus what is. So go with that natural gut reaction. Don't think too much about it. It's going to ask you just, would you enjoy doing these things? And like, no, I don't want to do that. Yes, I want to do that. I'd love to do that, or somewhere in between. And then at the end, it gives you some results to consider based upon those answers. Another great site that you may not have heard of is called Career Bridge. And the difference with Career Bridge, I probably like them more. So explore careers, again, as a quiz too. Again, go with that gut reaction. But once you get some ideas of what you are considering, you can look at education. So say, I'll just pick a program we offer at the college, occupational therapy. If I can type. And here's the part where I think Career Bridge does its best job, is in showing you what colleges specifically offer the program you're looking at. And you could do a filter. You only want to look at certain types of schools, like public, community colleges or four-year colleges, and tells you, right, the program, college, location, maybe online too, and the length of time it would take to complete that. Okay. ETP, you probably don't worry about that too much. Eligible training provider if you're going through the state for some assistance perhaps. But anyhow, great way to find programs where they're at. So once you do some interest assessment, you're like, okay, great. So maybe something in healthcare, but who offers healthcare programs in the state? You can use Career Bridge. And I guarantee your high school has some resources as well. One that we use at the college, Career Planner. Your high school might have two, or maybe you've heard of Voice, different career websites that high schools might pay for you to take advantage of at the same time. In addition, you could meet with a private career counselor. There are some what's called professional assessments that they have to be interpreted. And just because there's a lot of research into it, and if you just got the results, it might not make as much sense for you. And so we offer these at Green River College. So I'm actually licensed and trained to review those with students, but just know they exist. Probably the most popular one we offer, that again, you can be with, most colleges offer this too. It's kind of the interest assessment, or even a private counselor, private career counselor. It's called a strong interest inventory. And the difference with the strong is it compares you to the people that enjoy doing the jobs. Now, the ones I just showed you, the free ones like My Next Move and so forth. Those offer, they compare you to the job. So the question might be, hey, Josh, do you like cutting down trees? You say yes. Great, you should be a forester. Okay. But the strong, what they did is they talked to happy, successful foresters, had to take the same questions you're going to take, and then compares your responses to those people. And those people like their job and are doing above average. They're not like, what am I doing in this job? I love it, but I have no clue what I'm doing, right? So it's a kind of a neat perspective. And this is an example report. And so we would look at your overall interest. Then we could look at what fields you might enjoy working in, talk about maybe combinations. How could you combine these fields together? And everyone's favorite page, right, is, I call it the list of your 10 best friends, right? Because it's not 10 jobs you're looking at, excuse me. It's a list of 10 groups of people you have a lot in common with. And it shows you just how much you have in common based upon their interest with those folks. It's not saying, it's not guaranteeing, hey, Josh, you're going to love working as a speech pathologist way out there at 62. And you probably wouldn't like working as a physical therapist at 3. Maybe, maybe not, right? So once we get these higher numbers, yeah, it's just saying, hey, you have a lot in common with these people that enjoy these jobs currently. But I don't know about you, I don't have time to interview thousands of people and ask them, what their interests are. They've done that for you in advance. MBTI is personality, been around for a long time. And then one you might have heard of too is called the Clifton Strengths Finders, become a lot more popular. 30 years of research on what is talent. And they just identify your top 5 talents. Doesn't give you job titles, but again, one of mine is context. And it's really insightful. It says, I look to the past to understand the present. So I think naturally. It's why I liked history as a subject. And it's why I take my time and my appointments and first trying to get to know who the student is. What are they bringing to the appointment? What's their history? So then I can help understand better. Oh, that's why we might be looking at this or that based upon these reasons from the past. All right, looking at programs in schools and jobs. Again, My Next Move, Career Bridge, we talked about can do that. LinkedIn's a great resource if you haven't already used LinkedIn in the past. You might not know about this, but if you research a college, let's just say Washington State University, you can look at their alumni and you can see what they're doing. So if you're looking at certain majors or programs, let's just say psychology. That. So everyone that went to WSU that majored in psychology or has psychology in their profile, I can look at where they live, where they're working at, what companies, what they're doing kind of by different job fields, what they studied. So, and then how am I connected? So if you don't know, LinkedIn is just that, linking with other people. So I have 2 people that I know directly. But here's the crazy part. Look at those 2 people know 431 people somehow that also have these criteria met. And then so if I want to learn more about psychology at WSU, I can reach out to those people and ask them some questions. So LinkedIn, great way of finding people. So we've learned about yourself. We've done some research to see what jobs and programs might be a good fit with yourself. And then, of course, trying it on. So one great thing to do is information interviews, asking family and friends. You'd be surprised who your family knows or your friends know. And asking them, who do you know working in this field, this type of job? Again, for LinkedIn is a great tool to do that as well. You link with more people. Again, everyone you know has their own separate circle of friends, right? So that can tap into that really easily. There's 500 million people on LinkedIn, so you're bound to find some kind of connections. And of course, the actual information interview itself, simple questions to ask. How do most people find themselves in this job? Like, how do you get this type of job? Like, what did you major in? What kind of, did you do any internships? What did you do to get here? What are 2 things you enjoy the most about your job? What's one thing you wish you could change? I wouldn't say hate. I'd say what thing you'd change about your job that might get them talking a little bit more. And then always end every interview, whether it's a job interview or information interview, who else do you know I could contact about this type of work? And they'll give you names to talk with. And of course, job shadows, internships, part-time jobs, right? So quick story, for me, on my different assessments, elementary educator came up all the time. And so I thought, what if I took a class at least and checked it out? Loved the class in college, but by this time I'm now a senior and I've been majoring in psychology the whole time. And so I was talking to a friend about maybe changing majors. My teacher overheard me from that education class and said, "Whoa, Josh, before you make this huge change and add more time to your degree, why don't you go try out working at a school like a teacher assistant?" Took some time, but I eventually got the job because in California, there's a lot of hurdles you have to jump over to do that. And anyways, long story short, I got into the classroom. I did kindergarten all the way through fourth grade, and I quit after a month. Why? Because I did not enjoy babysitting other people's kids. I say that jokingly, but I learned I did not like elementary education. But it was a success because I did learn I like education, but at the higher level, right? Asking myself the question, what did I not like about this? It was just that, right? Children, I love, children, I love my kids to death. But as far as learning, it was, I want to do more of the critical thinking. And so that work you do more critical thinking, higher education. So that's why I found myself through that experience, directly and indirectly, to where I'm at today. In wrapping it up, right? Why is it important to do this stuff now? Yeah, you're going to save money, right? If I had changed majors just on a hunch or assumption, could you imagine adding 2 more years to college, 6 years versus 4? That'd been a lot of extra money I would have wasted and burned. You save time, again, right, from 6 to 4 years in my example. But if you're taking courses that relate to what you want to do in the future, it's just a quicker path. That's really the final one that I think is the most important, is staying motivated. There are certain times in college it's going to get tough. And if you're not sure what you're doing or why you're there, it's easy to kind of like say, well, forget this, right? But if you know why you're taking the courses, because you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know the goal you're going towards, and you like that goal, you're going to stay motivated even through difficult classes, when times get tough during college, because life keeps going, right? It's because you're in college doesn't mean life's going to be all happy every day. So key benefits: saving money, time, and staying motivated. Thanks for listening. Again, I'm Josh Staffieri at Green College. Hope you guys took some tips from this, and maybe I'll see you on the campus in the future. All right, take care.